Let me ask you something real. Do you remember those nights, or maybe weekend mornings, when you'd plop down in front of the TV and, for half an hour, the world seemed quiet and safe? No angry headlines, no scandals, none of the constant buzzing that fills our lives now. Just this made-up American family working through the kind of problems that only ever get solved in a living room with shag carpet and a coffee table. And somehow, that was everything you needed. Actually, it was kind of perfect. That was the magic of Leave It to Beaver. If you watched it as a kid, or caught reruns sprawled across the couch on a lazy Saturday, you probably still have a soft spot in your heart for the Cleavers. For Beaver himself, always tumbling headfirst into trouble. For Wally's quiet steadiness and loyalty. For June, with her pearls, that unshakable patience, and Ward's measured wisdom at the end of every day. And, of course, for Eddie Haskell, that one friend who could outcharm a snake and land you in twice as much trouble. But here's the part people tend to forget when they talk about old shows and childhood favorites. Those beloved characters were played by real people, with real lives carrying on long after the sets had been torn down and the scripts shelved. Their actual stories didn't always have neat endings or moral wrap-ups. They wrestled with hard things, tried to figure out who they'd be after the world stopped calling them by their TV names, and sometimes lived through ordeals even stranger than anything writers could dream up. So, let's open the door, just for a little while, and look at what happened after the credits rolled. Back to Mayfield, but then far beyond it. If you've got a warm drink handy, you're going to want to settle in and take your time with this one. Let's start with Beaver. Jerry Mathers was only 9 years old when he first stepped onto that set, a kid playing a kid, Theodore Cleaver, though nobody ever really called him that. And honestly, whoever dreamed up that nickname probably never guessed what Beaver would mean on the internet someday. But, well, we all have to live with the present. What made Beaver irresistible wasn't that he stood out for being especially smart or heroic or clever. He didn't. He was just a regular kid, making honest mistakes and winding up in messes he never saw coming. He'd trust the wrong person, fall for some ridiculous story, let his curiosity take him places it really shouldn't, and before anyone knew it, there he'd be, sheepish and contrite, trying to explain himself to his family. You knew he was going to mess up, and you rooted for him anyway, every single week. Now Jerry Mathers is 77 years old, and somehow, the Beaver is both a relic and a living, breathing guy. Life after Mayfield had its drama, starting with a tour in the Air National Guard during the Vietnam era. Weirdly, some newspaper managed to report he'd been killed in action, and that rumor stuck around for years. Imagine having to go around, repeatedly, telling people, "No, I'm not dead, you can stop sending flowers." Later on, he got a type 2 diabetes diagnosis, which could have made him retreat, but instead, he became a full-throated advocate for health awareness and diabetes education, using the attention that still followed him for something real. Every so often, he'd reprise his Beaver role for fans and reunion specials, always bringing a quiet sense of gratitude and nostalgia with him. He's 77 now, and he has something almost nobody else on Earth does. The love and warmth of an entire generation who never quite stopped caring about that earnest, accident-prone little boy. And then there's Wally. Tony Dow landed that role at 12. A lanky kid with watchful eyes, never entirely comfortable in the spotlight but entirely right for it. I honestly believe Wally was the secret glue holding the whole series together. Where Beaver blundered into trouble, Wally learned to size up the world, to hesitate, to doubt, to worry a little before making a move, and on some deep level understood how complicated real life could be. But he chose to be kind. Over and over. He put up with Eddie Haskell's nonsense with a patience most adults would envy. And here's the thing, he made you want to believe the best in people too. If loyalty could be measured, Wally would be off the charts. He didn't make big speeches, he didn't call attention to himself, he just showed up for his brother. He made being a good person seem simple, even when it wasn't. The best part? The Tony Dow you'd meet in real life wasn't all that different from Wally Cleaver. When the show wrapped, he didn't cling to TV fame. He poured himself into sculpting and fine art, exhibiting pieces all over the world, carving out a reputation that had nothing to do with nostalgia or black and white reruns. He directed shows, produced them. But Maybe most bravely, he talked about his long battle with depression, not as a dramatic confession or some press tour confession, but with the same steady candor that made Wally trustworthy. He showed that it's possible to fight a private battle and not let it define you. Tony Dow died on July 27, 2022, after a fight with cancer, and fans everywhere felt the loss, like you do with distant relatives. Not a shock, but a slow, deep ache that lingers. The kind of loss that makes you realize how much a familiar face can matter. And June Cleaver, the one and only, Barbara Billingsley, brought June Cleaver to life at 39, and within a couple years, she'd become the template, maybe not always fair, but unforgettable, for American motherhood as seen on TV. Even today, picture 1950s housewife and you'll see her. Pearls, dress, perfect posture, never raising her voice even when her sons tracked in half of the backyard. Here's what so many people missed though. June was never a pushover. She had warmth, sure, and patience. But there was a knowing look just beneath the surface, this constant awareness that, at the end of the day, she was the one quietly steering the ship, the center of gravity in that slightly chaotic home. Barbara Billingsley knew this, and never once played her as ornamental. June wasn't just Ward's quiet support. She made the gears turn, held the family together when everything threatened to come apart. When Beaver ended in 1963, Barbara Billingsley kept acting, pop up in various roles, always with that signature twinkle. And then, in 1980, she delivered one of the greatest TV cameos of all time in Airplane, playing that mild-mannered woman who, out of nowhere, starts speaking fluent jive. If you haven't seen it, you absolutely have to. It's pure gold, a perfect twist on everything her TV persona ever stood for. So those are just a few stories, a few threads pulled from the tapestry of Leave It to Beaver. More than a show, it became for a lot of people a memory of what it feels like to watch a little corner of the world be okay, even if just for 30 minutes. And behind that calm, there were real people living real, messy, surprising lives, reminding us that even the simplest stories can stick with us, long after the screen goes dark. Barbara Billingsley died on October 16, 2010. She was 94. And honestly, she made every one of those years count. People remember her, of course, as June Cleaver, but that barely covers it. She played June with such honesty and heart that even now, the name June Cleaver is a kind of shorthand for grace under pressure, for being gentle and tough all at once. There's a reason people invoke her whenever they want to describe someone truly kind and steady. Now, let's talk about Ward Cleaver. Hugh Beaumont was 46 when he walked onto the set in that role. And something about him just clicked. Right away. Here's the thing almost nobody mentions. Hugh Beaumont wasn't just an actor playing a wise father. He was an ordained Methodist minister off-screen. Suddenly, all those quiet moments in the show, all that calm advice and gentle guidance, makes sense. Ward Cleaver was more than just a TV dad. He was the real moral core of the family, the man who hardly ever raised his voice but commanded respect, just by being present. He'd wait until everyone quieted down, then say exactly what needed saying. Those little scenes, Ward sitting on the edge of Beaver's bed in the soft, late evening light, talking things out, still rank as some of the most quietly powerful television ever made. Beaumont ended up leaving the acting world behind, choosing a quieter, more private life as he got older. He had some health problems in the late 1970s, and died in Munich on May 14, 1982, aged 73. His work still speaks for itself. His calm strength was worth more than any dramatic monologue. That's a legacy, no question. Let's not overlook Eddie Haskell. Seriously, try to name another side character who's stuck in the collective memory as firmly as Eddie. Ken Osmond was just 12 when he first showed up as Eddie, and what he did with the part was straight up brilliant. Eddie was all yes ma'ams and sweet manners whenever parents hovered close by, especially June Cleaver, who had nerves of steel just dealing with him. But as soon as adults walked away, Eddie turned into a miniature schemer, whispering plans and pushing boundaries. But honestly, you never truly hated him. You might roll your eyes or groan at him, but Eddie always stayed just a little bit lovable. Underneath the shifty grins, you saw a kid who figured out early that being polite could get him far, sometimes a little too far. And that's just real. Ken Osmond's story after Beaver wrapped up almost feels like it came out of a script no one would believe. He became a cop, not just any cop. He joined the LAPD and stuck it out for 18 years. He handled real danger, even getting shot in the line of duty and making it through. The guy who played the most famously insincere teenager on TV ended up chasing down the worst parts of the real world with grit and guts. Talk about a plot twist. When Ken Osmond died on May 18, 2020, at 76, nobody could really imagine anyone else pulling off what he did, making a sneaky, troublemaking kid so human, so funny, and so real. And then there's Lumpy Rutherford. Frank Bank was only 13 when he became Lumpy, and there was something instantly likable about the character. A big, affable kid who wasn't exactly the sharpest student at Mayfield High, and everybody, including Lumpy, knew it. But he stuck around anyway, always there for his friends, loyal even when he didn't really understand what was happening. That simple kind of loyalty and genuine warmth, there's something wonderful about it. Frank Bank did something different after starring as Lumpy. He left acting almost entirely and dove into the world of finance, building a real career as a bond trader in Los Angeles. People who knew him in that life say he was naturally good at it, and later, he wrote an honest, down-to-earth memoir about his TV days. No sugarcoating, just the truth. He died April 14, 2013, at 71. Maybe the most important part of his story is how he refused to be boxed in by just one part of his past. And that's a lesson worth holding on to. Leave It to Beaver refuses to fade away. The show first aired on October 4, 1957. It ran for 234 episodes over 6 seasons and said its official goodbye in 1963. But come on, the goodbye never really took. Syndication kept it running, reunion films and revival series brought it back. And most of all, it lived on in the hearts of anyone who ever tuned in, sat down, and felt, for 30 minutes, like the world actually made sense, and good people had a shot at fixing their mistakes. The group that pulled off this miracle: Beaumont, Billingsley, Tony Dow, Ken Osmond, Frank Bank, all of them except for Jerry Mathers, have left us, each passing hit in its own quiet way, tugging at you. Because, underneath the warm laughs and tidy endings, these were just people, like the rest of us. Flawed, temporary. Now, at 77, Jerry Mathers is still here, carrying that torch for everyone who wishes just a bit that things could be that simple again. Here's the thing about Leave It to Beaver. It never pretended to show real life. The world on the screen wasn't actually possible, and the show knew it. What it offered was something rarer, a sense of possibility, a vision of how things might feel if we just slow down, listen, and talk to each other honestly at the end of the day. That mattered in 1957, and it matters now, on the days when the world feels loud and messy and a little bit too much. That half hour of hope, it still goes a long way.